There are two ways to read Donald Trump's latest visit to China. The first is the version Beijing wanted on camera. Red carpets, honor guards, banquet toasts, CEOs in the room, and language about a new era of constructive, strategic stability between the world's two largest economies. The second version is the one investors, executives, and policymakers should care about. This was not a reset. It was a leverage test. Trump arrived in Beijing with a fragile trade truce, an Iran crisis in the background, AI chip controls under pressure, and a $14 billion Taiwan arms package hanging in the air. Xi Jinping had his own list: restrain U.S. support for Taiwan, keep American companies economically exposed to China, soften the technology blockade, and show that Beijing can still command the optics of great power diplomacy. The photo op looked warm. The balance sheet was cold. Start with the numbers. In 2025, U.S. goods exports to China were about $106.3 billion. Imports were about $308.4 billion. That left a goods deficit of roughly $202.1 billion, according to U.S. Census and BEA data. Still huge, but down by about $93.4 billion from the previous year. For the first time in a generation, China was no longer America's single largest goods deficit counterpart. The European Union moved ahead. End quote. That changes the negotiation. In Trump's first term, China was the center of the American trade deficit story. In 2026, it is still central, but no longer the whole map. Supply chains have shifted toward Mexico, Vietnam, Taiwan, and the broader Indo-Pacific. Some of that is real diversification. Some is Chinese production moving through third countries. So, this visit was not about one grand bargain, it was about 4 pressure points. The first pressure point is Taiwan. According to China's official readout, Xi told Trump that Taiwan is the most important issue in U.S. China relations. If handled properly, the relationship can remain stable. If not, the two countries could face clashes and even conflict. That is Beijing setting the price of stability. The timing matters. A pending $14 billion U.S. arms package for Taiwan has been sitting in the political system. After the summit, Trump described the package as a negotiating chip and said it was being held in abeyance while he made a determination. For Beijing, that is the opening. China does not need Washington to formally abandon Taiwan. It only needs U.S. support to become slower, more conditional, and more ambiguous. Deterrence rarely fails all at once. It weakens through delays and mixed signals. Taiwan is not just a geopolitical issue, it is a balance sheet issue. The United States designs many of the most important chips, but the most advanced manufacturing still depends heavily on Taiwan's industrial base. A Taiwan crisis would hit AI, smartphones, cloud infrastructure, autos, defense electronics, and the market value of the largest companies in the S&P 500. If Taiwan arms sales become bargaining chips, the risk premium on the entire semiconductor economy changes. The second pressure point is trade. Trump went to Beijing talking about deals, oil, farm products, Boeing aircraft, and greater access for U.S. companies. This is familiar Trump diplomacy. It turns geopolitics into a purchase order. But trade deficits and supply chain dependencies are not the same thing. America's 2025 goods deficit with China was still about $202 billion. By January 2026, the monthly goods deficit was about $12.7 billion. Tariffs can compress trade flows and make the headline deficit look smaller, but they do not automatically rebuild domestic capacity or remove exposure to Chinese inputs, rare earths, batteries, and China-linked assembly through third countries. A deficit is visible. Dependency is hidden inside bill of materials spreadsheets. And Beijing's strongest leverage is no longer cheap consumer goods. It is choke points. Rare earths are the clearest example. According to USGS data, China produced about 270,000 tons of rare earth oxide equivalent in 2025, out of a world total of about 390,000 tons. That is roughly 69% of global mine production. But the deeper power is processing, separation, magnets, and specialized heavy rare earths. For some heavy rare earth compounds and metals, U.S. dependence is extreme. USGS tables show U.S. import sources for terbium and holmium compounds and metals at 100% China. Then, in April 2025, China tightened export controls on rare earths used in magnets, defense systems, data storage, electric vehicles, and advanced industrial equipment. That gives Beijing a dial, not a switch. It can slow licenses, prioritize friendly buyers, and create uncertainty without declaring an embargo. CEOs do not need a complete cutoff to start calling Washington. They only need delayed shipments, rising prices, and production risk. That is why the business delegation mattered. The CEOs were not just there to make deals. They were a living map of American exposure. Apple, Tesla, Nvidia, Boeing, and agribusiness all need something from China. For Beijing, American CEOs are not just guests, they are pressure points inside the U.S. political economy. The third pressure point is AI chips. This is where the visit intersects directly with the future of American power. The United States is trying to limit China's access to advanced AI accelerators while preserving U.S. company revenue and ecosystem control. Block everything, and China accelerates its domestic stack. Sell too much, and America narrows its compute advantage. The H200 debate shows the dilemma. Analysts at the Council on Foreign Relations argue that U.S. AI chips remain far ahead of Huawei's best alternatives, and that large-scale H200 exports could give Chinese AI firms a 2 to 3 year compute boost. CNAS has estimated that some policy designs could give China the equivalent compute of hundreds of thousands of H200 class chips. This is not just about NVIDIA's quarterly revenue. AI compute is becoming a strategic asset class, the oil field, aircraft carrier, and industrial plant of the model economy. Whoever controls advanced compute has leverage over frontier AI, military AI, biotech, autonomous systems, cyber operations, and cloud infrastructure. So, the chip question is not technical, it is strategic architecture for the AI age. Does America want China dependent on U.S. chips and software? Or does it want to deny China high-end compute, even if that pushes Beijing to build a parallel ecosystem faster? There is no clean answer, but there is a dangerous answer, making chip policy transactional without a durable strategy. If export controls become another bargaining chip, the market gets confused, allies get nervous, and Chinese planners learn that pressure works. The fourth pressure point is energy and Iran. The visit happened against instability around Iran and the Strait of Hormuz. In 2024, about 20 million barrels per day of oil and petroleum liquids moved through that choke point, roughly 1/5 of global petroleum liquids consumption. The United States is less exposed than it used to be. Asia is more exposed. China, India, Japan, and South Korea accounted for a combined 69% of Hormuz crude and condensate flows to Asia in 2024. China also has a special relationship with Iranian oil. Reuters and Kepler data, reported in early 2026, showed China buying more than 80% of Iran's shipped oil in 2025, averaging roughly 1.38 million barrels per day. This makes Iran a two-sided card. Trump wants China to pressure Iran, keep energy markets stable, and prevent another inflation shock. Xi wants to show he can help manage global instability, but he also wants concessions on Taiwan, trade, and technology. Energy diplomacy lets Beijing imply, if you want stability in the Gulf, you need stability in the Taiwan Strait. That is the hidden architecture of this visit. Trump wants trade wins, lower inflation risk, CEO access, possible oil purchases, farm exports, and a headline that says he can manage China better than anyone else. Xi wants Taiwan restraint, technology breathing room, legitimacy as America's equal, and continued dependence from U.S. companies. Neither side got a grand bargain, but Xi may have gotten something more valuable, a signal that the United States is willing to negotiate across issue areas. This also matters because China's economy is under real pressure. The World Bank estimated China's growth at 4.9% in 2025 and projected 4.4% for 2026. The IMF projected 5% in 2025 and 4.5% in 2026. For China, that is a slower, more constrained era. The property sector remains a drag. Youth unemployment reached 17.7% in September 2025. On-budget local government debt was around 38% of GDP as of October 2025, and the IMF has estimated off-budget local government financing vehicle debt at around 46% of GDP in 2023. She needs stability because China is managing property stress, local debt pressure, weak consumer confidence, demographic drag, deflationary pressure, and the need to move up the technology stack before export controls bite harder. Trump needs visible wins because his coalition responds to tariffs, factories, oil prices, and personal deal-making. So both leaders had incentives to lower the temperature. But lowering the temperature is not the same as resolving the conflict. The conflict is structural. America wants technological superiority, Taiwan deterrence, lower China dependency, and globally dominant U.S. firms. China wants to shape Taiwan's options over time, reduce dependence on U.S. technology, keep foreign capital engaged, and prevent a durable, U.S.-led containment coalition. Those goals do not naturally fit together. So what happens next? Scenario 1 is the transactional thaw. Xi visits the White House in the fall. China buys more U.S. farm products, energy, and aircraft. Taiwan arms are delayed or resized. AI chip licenses become more flexible. Markets like this because it lowers volatility. Beijing likes it because it buys time. The risk is that short-term trades weaken long-term deterrence. Scenario 2 is managed competition. The United States moves forward with Taiwan defense support, but with careful messaging. China keeps rare earth licenses flowing, but preserves the threat. AI chip policy becomes clearer. Commercial chips limited, frontier compute restricted, cloud access monitored, and allies aligned. It is boring, but probably the safest path. Scenario 3 is crisis snapback. Taiwan arms sales move forward, and Beijing retaliates. Rare earth licenses tighten, Iran worsens, and energy prices spike. U.S. export controls harden suddenly. Then the Beijing visit looks less like a reset and more like a pause before escalation. For investors, executives, and policymakers, watch 5 indicators. First, the Taiwan arms package. If it moves quickly, deterrence is being prioritized. If it stays frozen, Beijing has gained leverage. Second, rare earth export licenses. Do shipments normalize, or do delays become the new pressure tool? Third, AI chip licensing. Watch H200 class exports, not just headlines about advanced chips. Fourth, China's purchases of U.S. oil, farm goods, and aircraft. Real orders matter more than summit claims. Fifth, the fall Xi visit to Washington. If it happens, look at what China gets before the visit, not just what gets announced during it. The deeper lesson is this: U.S.-China relations are no longer a single competition. They are a portfolio of linked bargaining chips. Taiwan is connected to chips. Chips are connected to cloud infrastructure. Cloud infrastructure is connected to capital markets. Capital markets are connected to CEO pressure. CEO pressure is connected to trade access. Trade access is connected to rare earths. Rare earths are connected to defense production. Energy is connected to Iran. Iran connects back to inflation and American politics. This is what great power competition looks like in the model state era. Not one battlefield, not one trade deal, not one summit. A network of choke points. Trump's China visit did not solve that network. It revealed it. The danger is that Washington mistakes ceremony for strategy. The opportunity is that Washington can now see the map more clearly. If the United States wants to compete with China, it cannot rely only on tariffs or personal diplomacy. It needs industrial capacity, allied coordination, Taiwan deterrence, critical minerals resilience, clear AI compute rules, and a trade strategy that measures dependencies, not just deficits. Beijing understands leverage as a system. The question after this visit is whether Washington does too.